Hello. Not sure why my intro did not work, but I guess we'll just hop into it. Welcome to Black Tea News. I'm your host, Christina Barr, and today we're going to be talking about, Brittney's back or coming back. The White House has announced, and she has been swapped for a arms dealer, so prominent that the Lord of War that Nicolas Cage was in is supposed to be based off of him. So that's interesting. Also, we'll be talking about Jessica Valenti, who writes about abortion all day, every day, suggested that we should just allow people to steal. And she's particularly talking about diapers. But if anyone's worked in retail, and I've worked in retail for a while, not at this present moment, but I have, and other people have worked in retail, my family, and in other people I know, a lot of people will say people just don't steal just because they need something. And it's really amazing how just immoral our society is just overall. So we'll be talking about those things today. Also, there is a dean of students out in Chicago of a school that had some very peculiar stuff that went on, I guess, during Pride Month, and Project Veritas busted him. And the school has decided to stand by him, and I guess the sort of things that they teach and espouse, which is very disturbing. So parents out there, you just gotta be very diligent about what your kids are learning, what schools they're going to, and what you may not know. I personally wouldn't want my child to go to a school, I guess. I would just do homeschooling. You even got to be careful about what you do in private school nowadays, because there's been some really weird stuff going on in private schools as well. But we'll jump into all that. But we will not be having any memes of the day. Don't have any funny memes. But before we jump into everything, I want to encourage you guys to go to blacktnews.com, check out different content we have on the website, different articles, which I did drop an article about Jessica Valenti's comments, which people have been dunking on her for sure, but there's like a lot of people who agree, which is pretty alarming as well. But wrote an article about that, wrote some articles about some other things. Check out different merchandise that we have at blacktnews.com, different mugs, different t-shirts that we have at the website that you guys can check out. Made this Canadian stuff during the trucker stuff, but as COVID keeps hyping up, I don't know if we'll ever really be rid of COVID. I posted an article headline that was from someone Substack about a young girl who, I think she's about 14, and she needs a transplant, and they want to give her a transplant because she doesn't want to take the COVID vaccine. And this young woman has already had COVID and she's recovered from COVID, yet they still don't want to give her the vaccine. And so it's interesting when I bring up this kind of stuff to people, they want to act like it hasn't happened. And I'm like, oh gosh, it's still happening. And people want to act like, I don't know, people weren't forced to take it. Did someone hold you down and like jab it in your butt or something like that? Like nobody did something like that. No, but were people coerced? Did they have the unconstitutional like OSHA mandates for the employers with 100, employees or more that they did? Yeah, they did. And it was like, well, did they force you to get, you still had an option? Yeah, you still had an option. It was feed your family or leave. And some people left or was like waiting or biding their time to see if they would be forced out. And there was a lot of people forced out, especially like different city employees and like in New York and other places, which they were ordered to give like back pay to those folks. But even if you decided to stay and not be vaccinated and you had to do the shot, get tested, it didn't make any sense because you could still spread COVID even if you had the vaccine. So it wouldn't make sense to not test everyone. So we just lived in a really bizarre time, and it's still a bizarre time. I'm not convinced that it's over, because there's still, I don't know, so much money that's been involved around COVID and so much power that's been amassed during this time, and such a big transference of wealth during this time, and so much different social conditioning that has happened, that who knows, they could always try something like this again or something similar, even with the same pandemic or disease, or there could always just be another one that can spark the same sort of thing later. I don't think the electoral backlash that we probably needed to happen to offset something like this happened. We did not get a huge red wave. We did in some like parts, like, Florida had a big red wave. Georgia had, some good elections, except for like Herschel Walker, who just lost the other day. So there were some good, wins, solid wins, but other places we got shellacked. In my state, we got shellacked, and my governor had like some of the worst lockdown policies, and the voters did not make her accountable for her actions. So I'm not convinced that you won't see those sort of things happening again in the U.S. Unfortunately, because we just did not learn our lesson. But anyway, check out different merch that we have at the store. If you like what I do here at blacktnews.com, you guys can go to the website and go to blacktnews.com/donate to leave a gift there, leave a donation. It costs a stream, costs to run my website, do all that kind of stuff. If you want to support some of that overhead, you absolutely can. I very much appreciate it. Otherwise, I thank you for liking, for sharing, for tagging other people, saying, hey, check this out, you got to watch this. It's all very much appreciated, and it does all very much help. So God bless you, everyone who watches Black Tea News, everyone who supports, and couldn't do this without every single person who watches, who, like I said, who tags other people, etc. So I'm appreciative of everyone, especially people go the extra mile. But thank you for watching. Thank you for everyone who watches back later. I know a lot of people are at work or getting off work about this time and actually come back and watch stuff later. So God bless you. And we'll be putting stuff on like Spotify and podcasts later, starting next year. So watch out for that as well. So I have a few snippets to play, but I'm having some issues. Let's see if I can play it this way with Biden talking about Griner.
Morning. Moments ago, standing together with her, Sherelle, in the Oval Office, I spoke with Brittney Griner. She's safe. She's on a plane. She's on her way home after months of being unjustly detained in Russia, held under intolerable circumstances. Brittney will soon be back in the arms of her loved ones, and she should have been there all along. This is a day we worked toward for a long time. We never stopped pushing for her release. It took painstaking and intense negotiations, and I want to thank all the hardworking public servants across my administration.
Yeah, so
there
are other people that folks are questioning why weren't they released as well, particularly a Marine, and why Andy Whiteguard, who's the head of the teachers union, tweeted out something crazy, and I already shared it on Facebook earlier today. But she said, "What a relief! Extraordinary news. A basketball star, but also a gay Black woman, is released. And yes, of course, we want other prisoners like Paul Whelan released." So what a bizarre thing to to post. What a bizarre thing to say. Because she really did talk about this Marine and as an afterthought, and pointing out that Brittney is gay and a Black woman. So I don't know. It kind of seems like they're aware that there was some privilege there as far as her priority goes. Now, Biden apparently did try to get Whelan out, but the Russians weren't having it. Um, they weren't. It was either Brittney or nothing, so they went with Brittney, and they traded Brittney for an arms dealer at a time when we're at war. So it just doesn't seem like a good deal. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm glad that Brittney is coming home. At one point, her lawyer didn't even know where she was, and I can't imagine. I was talking to my older sister about it, and like I can't even imagine how scary that would be for her loved ones to not even know where she is in Russia. That, I mean, people make all sorts of comments about Russian prisons. You know, there's also all these jokes about everyone goes to Russian prison, but and she did commit a crime, and she was, you know, detained and imprisoned for her crime. Now it was a very harsh penalty, but there's something that I'm not surprised they have been working on. This is a deal that I guess people have known. CBS reported that they've known about it for a week, but they were asked by the White House not to report anything because it was really fragile and they didn't want to like mess it up or anything like that. So they held it to the chest and reported it today as an announcement came out. But we've been hearing that this was the possible swap for a while. And again, this is an arms dealer that if you've seen the Lord of War movie, it's like allegedly based off of this man. He's that notorious. Again, I'm glad she's coming home. A lot of people are like, this is not a good deal though. And we wish we would have at least got some other Americans as well. Some people are mentioning that, you know, she's not fond of America or is, you know, knelt for the national anthem and stuff. I still don't want her over in a Russian prison. And I don't think the people who are bringing those things up want her to stay in a Russian prison. But just, I've heard some people say, you know, I hope she appreciates America a little bit more. I'm sure she will. She may still feel jaded that she was over for such a long amount of time, but I'm sure she'll be appreciative that she's back home. And I'm glad to see her home, but I wish that they could have gotten a better deal. Biden said on the campaign trail that he was the only one who could stand up to Putin. And I don't think this is really getting the best of him. What you've seen from this administration is someone who's basically so many woes that we've had for the past year. They've put on Putin, like the gas prices and inflation and all the other kind of stuff. And I'm like, you're really one, not taking accountability for the different policies that you've put into place all this time, but two, do you want to make this man seem more powerful than he is? Because it just kind of seems like when all Americans are suffering, it either seems like two options. One, you want us to be so angry that if you try to do something that will be on board with going along with it, if we had to have like World War III or something like that, or you're just trying to pass off blame. But in passing off blame and saying that this is all Putin's doing, it just makes it seem like they get to brag about how they're bringing Americans to their knees as far as a lot of these prices are going, because it affects people deeply when they go to the gas station and prices are so high, and it costs to transport, you know, things from back and forth. There's people who couldn't afford to go to work, so they can't even make money. So it's not a good deal, but I am glad to see her home. But it is very curious, the commentary that the people are deciding to have, because she checks so many boxes on the intersectionality scale. Here's CNN talking about it a bit.
If we didn't mention also the importance this plays for the LGBTQ community. So as we've been talking about Black women, this is big. So there's the LGBTQ community. GLAAD releasing a statement, obviously, I'm summarizing here that they're happy, and that shows the struggles and the danger that members of the LGBT community face around the world. When you look at what is happening with the LGBT community specifically here in the United States. What does this say? Does this bring attention to that? And it shows us, hey, look, we're all Americans.
Listen, Brittney Griner represents everything in this country. She's female, she's LGBTQ, she's Black, and she's extraordinary. She's excellent. She's overcome. She's an icon. She's done everything in her sport and more, and yet she still wasn't safe. She was snatched off of a plane, treated like trash, and we didn't let it stand. Americans came together, and I think that Biden and Kamala Harris, this is one of the things that they're going to be, I think, the most proud of. I think Americans can stand together on this one. But where we say that right now, when she comes off that plane, when she walks off that plane, when her wife hugs her, when that moment happens, that is going to be decade defining. People will remember that, and it should show us what we can do when we stand together. It can show us what we can do when we don't give up on people.
Yeah, so it's going to be so defined. I mean, it is great when you bring people home. I'm sure it'll be something that the administration is proud of. I mean, I think the Obama administration was very proud of their swap for like a defector for 5 different like terrorists. So I'm sure maybe that they will be proud of it. It doesn't mean that it was a good swap. I'm not saying that they shouldn't have got Brittney home. I'm again glad that she's coming home. I just wish that they could have done more, especially for a notorious Russian arms dealer. But this narrative of her it being so important that she's Black, and Van Jones talking about, oh, she was the top of her game, etc. First of all, I mean, a lot of people don't pay any attention to women's NBA at all. I had no idea who this person was until this became a story and this became a thing. There was a joke I saw today that was this is the first time that people have probably cared about a woman's NBA trade at all. And him talking about she was like the top of the world, top of the field, and she still wasn't safe. She got snatched. Well, she got snatched because she did break their laws. So there is that. I'm not saying she was treated fairly. I mean, as in that I thought the punishment that she had was just or anything, but I mean, she did break their laws. I just want to put that out there. But I am glad that she's coming back again. But it is strange that Randy Whiteguard and CNN and all these folks want to draw so much attention to the fact that she's a Black gay woman who is married, and it leads people to question, is that one of the reasons why they did work so hard to get her home as opposed to some other people? I mean, there's other people who have been in prison for similar crimes over in Russia, and the White House doesn't even have them listed as like wrongfully detained. But Brittney has caused a lot of PR because she is a famous person, and she's probably because she's also on the intersectionality scale. That this was something that the White House couldn't just not take care of. So, and again, the way they obsess out of it kind of gives the game away that that's one of the reasons why they wanted her in particular back so much. So, I hope that the White House will continue to get other folks back. Again, Randy Whiteguard's tweet was so strange. Go ahead and just read it one more time. She said, a great relief, extraordinary news, a basketball star, but also gay Black woman is released. And yes, of course, we want other prisoners like Paul Whelan released. It's just an afterthought. But, you know, he's not Black, he's not gay. He's, you know, he's just a Marine who's been left over in Russia and apparently was a non-starter for the Russians, and the president couldn't negotiate a bigger deal. But you'll be happy to know that after you know, Biden did all this, he decided to go and spend some time remembering the victims of gun violence right after, you know, they made it known that they were going to release a weapons arms dealer. So that's our White House. That's our White House, folks. Okay, I want to go ahead and talk about this story that happened. I guess this tweet is like 2 days old now, but it happened on Tuesday. But I saw it circulating on Twitter. More people are kind of picking it up. But there's a a woman's activist, feminist, pro-abortion person, Jessica Valenti, and I've seen her name around. I've seen her name on writing different things, I suppose. But she tweeted out that a picture of diapers behind a glass case in New York. And she said, this baby aisle at my local Rite Aid, she said, this is a baby aisle at our local Rite Aid. We're a country that wants to force women into childbirth and then lock up diapers. So no, we definitely don't want to do that. If there's some kind of like woman trafficking place where they're taking women and forcing them to forcibly impregnating them and kidnapping them and forcing them to bear children and have them, that would be awful. I would like to put everyone associated with that in jail. But if this rhetoric simply means that if a person who has sex with another person and engages in the act of procreation, especially consensually, and they make a baby, and if we as a society decide or say like, hey, we don't think that you should use an act of force and violently aggress upon that baby, your child, that your offspring in your womb, I don't think like saying that or making laws to stop force is actual force. Now, maybe you could say that because anything that's involved with the government is threat of the government. Well, that would just mean like if laws against someone else violently aggressing against Jessica or whoever would be an act of force because it stops them from doing something else. So if someone like Jessica was pregnant, if she got pregnant, I'd have nothing to do with that, right? I could have nothing to do with that. So I can't force her to get pregnant. I can't force her to, I mean, unless like I'm injecting and holding her kidnapped or something like that, some kind of sci-fi film or something. I can't have anything to do with that. I'm not forcing her at all. But if I whether I have an opinion on it or whatever, she's going to have the child. So one way or another, once you're pregnant, the baby's going to pass through you some way, alive or dead. So abortion is just forced birth, but to a dead baby. That's what it is. Like the forced birth narrative is so tired. It's so tired. And sometimes I argue with it. I'm getting to the point where I just want to say, okay, you can say that if you want to, but just you still can't kill your kids. Like, but language is very powerful. So you got to fight on different fronts about it. So it's such a bizarre thing to say. And by the way, so that one of her followers also tweeted under hers a picture of baby formula locked up. And they said, and don't get me started on the baby formula, which is amazing because like, did we not have a baby formula shortage like not too long ago? So wouldn't it be nice? Now, granted, the original picture is from 2021, so it was a huge problem in this past year. But isn't it a good thing to lock up products that people need? So when people who need to purchase them go to the store, that it's available for them to purchase the items. Like I think that's a good thing. Now, as someone who goes to the store and needs the stuff, it is a little annoying needing to wait for someone to open the case, etc. But I don't understand all these people getting so offended, so angry. Like there'd be people mad. There was a viral picture of like black hair products like locked up, and people angry about that and saying, "Oh, this is racist." People. I don't care where you go. People lock up items that are high theft items that people can't afford to be stolen all the time. So in the case of like the black hair products or whatever, if it's I don't know, Walmart or something like that. I think it was at a Walmart. So you get more stuff of like Pantene, like they mass produce that at a level that your niche black hair market isn't going to produce. It's those that stuff is probably going to be higher cost because it's to a smaller market and they don't have the mass production that those other folks do have, and they can't afford to be losing this particular product, especially if people are coming in continuously to steal it. It would be better for them to just stop carrying it. So if they want it available for their customers, the best thing for their customers to protect them and their buying power in that store is to lock it up so you can actually get the product. Otherwise, they would just stop carrying it. And if they get stuff gets stolen too many times, they might just want to pack up and not be in the neighborhood at all. So people throwing a hissy fit because people take the time to lock that stuff up. By the way, as someone who's had to lock that stuff up, it's not fun. I don't like it. I didn't like spider wrapping stuff at Target, like every single like box of razor blades. You think that was fun, like doing that, or electric toothbrushes? Or was it fun to when I worked at Micro Center, we had to lock up all these different flash drives. You know how many flash drives are at Micro Center? And then people started like stealing those off the wazoo, and you had to start keeping them like in a back room. And so people wanted like, oh, I want this 32 gig flash drive. I'm like, are you kidding me? And then I have to go look for the flash drive in the back room, hoping I don't miss a sale because I'm looking for a flash drive in the back, and someone else coming in and says I want to build a super master computer to I don't know, to get Bitcoin, funnel Bitcoin, mine Bitcoin and stuff. And they spend all that money. Someone else gets that sale and I miss it because I'm looking for a flash drive. Nobody likes that. Nobody likes to do that. Nobody likes taking the time to do that. But I also don't like filling out incident reports at the end of the night. And stores definitely don't like taking losses. Target had reported that the organized retail crime is responsible for $400 million loss in profits this year. Earlier this year, you had New York's NYPD saying that organized crime, retail crime, was the worst they had seen in like 30 years. So it's not like this isn't a real problem, just in general. So yes, people have to lock things up, but I guess because she feels that it's diapers, that this is such a bad thing about America, and we need to be, I don't know, more compassionate or to these people taking stuff. But people just don't steal stuff out of need, and she thinks it's a conspiracy, and that they just want you to believe that all these people locking up, you coming for diapers don't really need it. And she's like, they'll have you believe that there's some kind of criminal ring organization. Well, yes, people steal the stuff and they sell it online, especially if there's a shortage. Do you remember how many people were like hoarding cleaning products when COVID first happened? So, someone said, I'm not getting alerts from my channel. I don't know why you're not getting alerts from a channel, but thank you for tuning in. But at the beginning of COVID, there were people who were like buying lots of products so they could not just store it, people were reselling it as well. So stores had to start saying like, you can only get 1 or 2 toilet paper packs per household, or 1 or 2 Clorox things. I mean, we all remember when there was that sort of scarcity. And so I don't understand why people don't believe that people don't do that, whether it's diapers or anything else. I mean, it's not just customers who come in and steal stuff. There's people who work at stores and will steal stuff. I was talking about something the other day about someone who I had heard had stole something. I'm just like, why would they do this? Would they have a job? Like people, sometimes it's a crime of opportunity, and that's one good reason why people like say like you've got to be really good at customer service, because some people they think about it, and the fact that you come around the corner or they know people are watching it, that is enough of a deterrent for people not to steal stuff. But some people figure it out. I mean, there were really advanced criminals who would come to like, I don't know, different stores that I would work at and stack up stuff, and there'd be a pallet and stuff would just be gone. People still like giant TVs. If you didn't watch them, if you go to like a local beauty supply store, there's a wall. There's always a wall of people caught on surveillance cameras who come into the store. And there was and that's like public, like right when you come into the door, there'll be a wall of people, so everyone can see who in the neighborhood's been stealing stuff. But when I worked in retail and other places, they'd have pictures of people who stole stuff, but it would be like in the back room or something that you could see, so you could watch when these people came in. But she said on a more practical level, and this was the tweet that everybody was talking about, how about you let people steal the bleeping diapers if they need them? I would hope that ensuring babies don't sit in their own filth is a universal value. Law enforcement, especially in New York City, would like us to believe that there are roving gangs of shoplifters who are interested in diapers for reasons beyond keeping babies clean. It's disgusting. But it's true though. You think all these gangs are coming in to steal diapers because they all just have babies? Maybe they do, but that don't mean that they're in need of the diapers and they're not reselling the stuff somewhere else. And just because someone steals something doesn't mean that they are in financial dire need of that item. That doesn't mean that they have no money and have no options. Sometimes people just steal stuff. What about the nuclear person? I can't think of his name. He with the government who stole the woman's luggage. He didn't need to do that. I mean, he's a weirdo, I suppose, and there's probably more nefarious things, and maybe he just likes to try on women's clothing and keep it and stuff. But people who steal don't always steal because they're in need. People who work in LP, someone in my comments said they just retired from LP, and they're like, most time people do not steal out of need. And that's not something that I've witnessed either, just in my experience of retail. And I don't know if this girl's ever worked in retail at all, but so many people are just dunking on her. But as I said, New York City has said that there has been high retail theft and organized retail theft. I'm sure you guys have seen videos of across the country of organized flash mobs of people coming in and just stealing stuff and going. In Philadelphia, I guess the police aren't really doing their job, the prosecutors aren't doing their job. So there was one like gas station owner who just is armed security, and the one of the people who owns the security firm, he's like former police or whatever. So he's like, my guys train every other week, they know the laws, etc. And so they're just standing guard, dressed in all black, got these huge guns, and some people are uncomfortable with it. But and so they asked, like, how do you feel about people who are uncomfortable with it and with all these people carrying these guns? And they're like, the criminals who come in and rob and do whatever, they carry guns. So somebody's got to have the guns. You might as well have it be the people who are going to be protecting the clients. And since they started having armed security, they haven't had any incidents. So there has been a mass wave of crime, and I think people have gotten more emboldened and indignant to do these things, especially in 2020 when we were like imparting an attitude within people like this is something that they are entitled to and they deserve it. And at the same time, you have these really, really woke prosecutors and DAs being installed, and George Soros paying to have justice reform, etc. So we're just creating a really, really ridiculous climate for people to live in, and so many people are terrorized. And unfortunately, you have some people who keep voting in the same people who are going to continuously make more victims. And I don't understand. I don't know how bad things have to be for people to make some kind of change. It almost had it with, I guess, Lee Zeldin, but I don't know, some of Lee Zeldin's momentum in New York probably had to do with people not liking Hochul, not liking Cuomo, because there was other people who did polls and comparisons that if Cuomo was against Zeldin, that he would have been winning by a much larger margin. So you may see Cuomo come back, who knows. But Jessica also said, I'd be curious to know if diapers are locked up in any other parts of NYC. I don't think it's a coincidence that my local Rite Aid happens to be the closest one to public housing development. So it doesn't matter. People are not entitled to steal. Now, we don't like to think of like disposable diapers as being a luxury item, just like women don't like to think of like tampons and pads and stuff, disposable ones, as being a luxury item, but they are luxury items. And God bless the people who made them. Very grateful for them, and but they're still luxury items. And there are like even reusable ones. Like there are reusable cotton diapers that you can get, that you can wash, that women are turning to because they are less expensive and they will save you money over time. But we like the convenience of being able to just, you know, take it off, throw it away, wipe the baby clean, put on another diaper. That's what we like. I don't blame anyone for it. I would plan to live my motherhood life that way as well. But some besides the economic value of it, people also talk about the environmental value of it. So I'm, surprised, I guess, more people aren't pushing stuff like that. But no, people shouldn't just be allowed to steal. They shouldn't just be allowed to steal. And she talks about how we should all like have the value of keeping a baby out of their like, again, people don't just steal stuff out of need, but also, isn't private property like a value as well? Like if you're not a communist, like that, isn't that something that we should all care about? Now, these folks in her comments don't care that a big corporation, big company like Rite Aid is losing money. But if it's immoral to charge people for diapers, or if it's immoral to stop people from stealing diapers, why is it moral for people to pay for them at all? So why should I pay for diapers? And my sister has kids. I could buy her diaper, but she buys her own diapers. She's cool. Why should she have to buy diapers and other people get to steal it? That doesn't make any sense. Why not everybody steal diapers? And why can't or why not just steal more stuff to offset the cost of diapers? Why specifically diapers? Why should Rite Aid even carry them if there's not going to be any profit to it? If people should just be allowed to steal, why should Pampers and Huggies be a for-profit company at all if people should just be allowed to steal diapers? And people are also pointing out that churches and pregnancy crisis centers and stuff, they do like provide diapers, but pro-abortion activists like Jessica don't like pregnancy crisis centers. People like Elizabeth Warren is upset that they outnumber abortion clinics. Like I think she said 3-1 in her state. Gretchen Whitmer, she vetoed money that was going to go to pregnancy crisis centers in the budget for 2023. And people are like, I saw somebody try to say, oh, did the Senate approve that? It was in the package. The new people coming in is going to be Democrat controlled legislature, but right now it is still Republican. But when she vetoed it, it was in the budget for 2023 because they've already approved it. It was in the budget, but she has veto power, like line by line item or whatever. So she used her power to veto that money that would have gone to pregnancy crisis centers. Now, she didn't specifically say anything about herself, I don't believe, but her spokesperson said that they don't want to give money to organizations like that because they said they spread misinformation. And when they say they spread misinformation, they're not very, very specific, or they'll claim, that they're giving them information, harmful information, trying to trick women. They're just trying to be honest about what happens during an abortion, what can happen to a woman during abortion, and the stage of development of their baby. So because they are trying to convince women to not have an abortion. And they'll say that they're being misleading or something. So if you go on like their websites, many of them will say that they don't do abortions. So there's no confusion there, but women come to those places desperate, afraid, or whatever, and they try to give them a different option. And you know what? I don't think that's a bad thing. I don't understand, even if you like the option of abortion for women, you think it should be available. It doesn't make sense to me as a society why we're still not kicking and screaming and trying to convince women not to do it, because it is still very an immoral thing. I mean, regardless of if you see it as you may value it more at 24 weeks or 32 weeks than you do at 6 weeks, but you are aware that it's the same person throughout that span of time, right? Correct? We can all at least agree on that. Like there's no like new baby that gets built by IKEA at some point in your uterus. It's the same person. It's the same person. It's just, developing. It's growing up as we all do over time. So it would make sense to me that we as a society just try to convince a woman to not in their life, especially because the Turnaway study, which leftists love to quote all the time, says that 95% of women who are turned away from abortions don't regret not getting abortions. Now, the Turnaway study will also say that majority of women who get abortions don't regret their abortions, which there's some faulty sort of compilation of the data that people have criticized with the Turnaway study. But let's, I guess from both conclusions, we can conclude that people tend to get used to their situations or convince themselves that they made the right decision regardless. But so if 95% of women turned away from abortion will come to not regret getting one, doesn't that make abortion on demand really, 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 really immoral? And there was like a third of women who changed their mind, because Turnaway looks at 5 years, span of 5 years. But like a third of women don't regret not getting the abortion just within like a week or so. So if a week can make all the difference of someone not being denied an abortion, then to me, we need to close down many of these abortion clinics and continuously keep promoting these pregnancy crisis centers and help women in need. You know, it's not kind to allow people to steal. Theft is selfish. Theft is selfish. It hurts the community. It hurts the businesses. It hurts the people who need the products. And it definitely hurts people when a company decides to up and leave because it's not profitable for them. And then you're in an inner city and you don't have a darn grocery store. It's selfish. But if you want to be kind and compassionate, you can choose charity. So if you know a woman who is in need and actually needs diapers and all these sorts of things, which if you are low income, there's plenty of generous stuff from like Medicaid or WIC or whatever that will get that can go toward a lot of stuff for your baby, for your kids. You can't use WIC for diapers, from my understanding, but you can offset the cost and then use your own money to go get diapers. So, and if you can't, you can go to church and pregnancy crisis, etc. But a lot of these activists, think about how much money, the millions upon millions of dollars that were spent to try to get like Prop 3 passed in Michigan or other stuff across the country. You know, think about how much money goes into politics in general, how much money that people spend on luxury items, and I mean luxury items, or how much money we spent on movies or on different subscriptions to stuff, how much money that people gave to Black Lives Matter or the Minnesota Freedom Fund to bail out rioters in 2020. Think about how much money we spend. There's more than enough money to take care of each other if we truly desired to do that. If we truly desire to do that, but a lot of people do not. So if Jessica wants to choose charity, doing all that stuff, she can, and a lot of people do. She wants to uplift organizations that help women in need who need diapers. That's great. But what you shouldn't do is allow people to steal. You shouldn't allow people to steal. But there's a lot of people who don't like the idea of property, and if you steal something from a big corporation, it's, oh, you know, they can afford to lose it. That person really needed it. No, they didn't. Or maybe they didn't. Most likely they didn't. But they still don't have, they're still not entitled to that property regardless. But that's the world that we live in right now. That's where we live in right now. Moving on, I want to show you guys this really disturbing video from this dean of students. Project Veritas was able to get this video, and it's really impressive how they can always get these people to talk. But the school has decided to stand by them. So I'm going to go ahead and show the video and then read the statement from the school.
LGBTQ+ health center come in, passing around butt plugs and dildos to my students, talking about queer sex, using lube versus using spit.
Meet Joe Bruno, Dean of Students at the prestigious Francis W. Parker Private School in Chicago, which happens to charge $40,000 per student.
They're just like passing around dildos, butt plugs, The kids are just playing with them. They're like, how does this work? How do we do, like, how does this work? That's a really, like, cool part of my job.
Parents might be stunned to learn that Bruno's version of love and acceptance means handing out sex toys to underage students.
So I've been the dean for 4 years. During Pride, we do a Pride Week every year, and I had like our LGBTQ plus health center come in. They were passing around butt plugs and dildos to my students, talking about queer sex, using lube versus using spit.
Who is this?
This is the LGBTQ plus health center came in to talk to my high school students.
Nice.
They're just like passing around dildos, butt plugs. The kids are just playing with them. They're looking at them.
In the school?
In the class.
Wow.
Yeah. While I'm sitting there. Then we had a drag queen come in, pass out cookies and brownies and do photos.
It's so amazing. And everybody's cool with that, like the butt plugs and the dildos. Nobody complains.
No.
I mean, if the parents found out, but they...
No. It's queer sex. This is the drag queen that came in.
What's her name?
Alexis Bevels.
Alexis Bevel.
Just hung out in my classroom.
Was there...
Or hung out in my office.
You have so much freedom. So much wiggle room.
So much freedom. So much money.
I mean,
To do stuff.
trustees are okay with that too? They don't know.
They would. It's like I wouldn't even like run it by them. Like, why would I run it by them? They would be like, "Oh my god, that's wonderful."
Like, how old were the kids at the classroom?
14, 18. They're like, "How does this work? How do we do, like, how does this work?"
Right.
So yeah, that's a really like cool part of my job is I don't have to worry about stuff like that.
Okay. So that's obviously really disturbing. And this was a message from the community regarding an incident this evening from the Deer Park community. We are writing to let you know that one of our employees, while at a conference last week, was targeted by a right-wing fringe group of individuals that seeks to undermine and manipulate diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging work in schools. This evening, the group showed up outside the school and attempted to confront and ambush this employee with aggressive questions. A handful of students and family members were present. This incident is very upsetting, and we stand in full support of our employee. We have put additional security measures in place, and we will notify the community should there be any additional activity from this group regarding the school and our employee. We advise members of our community not to engage with any organization that fits this general profile. Respectfully, Dan Frank, the principal, and Priyanka Rupini, and the assistant principal. So they're standing by this, and if your kids go to the school, you better pull them out, like. And you know what, man, you better watch what the folks are doing to your kids. You better watch what folks are doing to your children. I remember being at a pep rally, and somebody like blew up a condom and they started passing it around like a balloon. And I was so disgusted. I was so grossed out. I can't imagine someone, if I was in school, between the ages of 14 to 18, and people passing around dildos and butt plugs, which I mean, I've heard what that is because of I've never seen 50 Shades of Grey, but I like to watch honest trailers. And that's the only reason why I guess I've heard that. So I'm not sure what they actually look like, but and I'm not going to Google it, but that's not appropriate for kids in the least bit. And you know what, and he said he can get away with it because it's queer stuff, it's queer sex, that it all goes under that umbrella. And so a lot of people talk about sex education and comprehensive sex education. There's a TikTok live, I had screenshot it, because there was someone who said that it's amazing. Like, it was like, spanking is for lazy parents, pro-choice. And I'm like, okay, I can't wrap my mind around that. And they also said like paid leave. So if you choose to have the child, people are obligated to pay for them. Like people can argue about the merits of paid leave. I think every time the government keeps in getting involved and giving you money, then it's a there's there's strings always attached to it. So you just want to be careful who you get in bed with. Um, and also like I think if your employer wants to give you paid leave, that's a good thing. I don't think the government should be forced to do that. Especially like for a super long amount of time for I don't think that's it's good if your company wants to do that voluntarily. That's amazing. I just don't think the government should enforce that the way that people want them to enforce it. Is my opinion. But I just thought all the different things driving together just didn't compute in my mind. But they also had comprehensive sex education, and there were different people on the screen that were blocking the K through 12, I guess. Someone it started to say K, you could see that. And so someone in my comments was like, comprehensive sex education, K through 12. Like, we got to talk about this groomer stuff. I'm like, I didn't even notice that. But there are so many people who are so pro comprehensive sex education from K to 12. And they'll say, well, don't you want, kids to know about consent and be aware? And dude, I don't trust creeps out there, bro. I like, Thomas Sowell talks about sex education, and he talks about how it's since like it had started there, like there was a decline of people getting pregnant, in high school and venereal diseases, and that started to go up when they started to introduce sex education. And he believes that the reason why people introduce or have sex education is to normalize sex, not to stop people from getting pregnant, not to stop people from getting disease. Maybe that's a part of it, the deal, a little bit. But the main contention for it, the main reason for it is to really have people be more normalized with sex. And one point that he mentioned is, why would you need it to be K through 12 or to have it to be multiple grades if it's really just about learning a particular thing about your body? You don't need to have it like every single year. Like when they did sex education when I was a kid, they had a little bit in 4th grade, a little bit in 5th grade, and I think that was it. And then you had like a health class in middle school that covered that stuff a bit, and then in high school maybe you had you did have a health class in high school. So and that was the extent of it. But people want like this to be a sectioned off thing, starting from age 4 or 5 or whatever, all the way to you finish. And apparently they want it have just not like you get together, this is how you make a baby, but also this is how gay kids have sex. And it's like, well, gay kids aren't getting pregnant. Like, why are we learning about this? So you can also see some of the agenda as well, like Guttmacher Institute, they'll condemn abstinence, which a lot of you say that people start having demonic exorcisms on the spot. Oh, she said abstinence. So they talk against abstinence only education, which there have been some positive studies for it, but it's hard to replicate. I think at the end of the day, government's just not good at doing things. But it does work, I promise you, if you choose to be abstinent. But some of the reasons why the Guttmacher Institute doesn't like abstinence, which it's named after Alan Guttmacher. Alan Guttmacher took over Planned Parenthood after Margaret Sanger, which they were both eugenicists, FYI. But they talk about and condemn those programs because they think that they're homophobic and they make people uncomfortable about having sex and etc. So if you read some of their condemnation on it, which I did include some of that stuff in my book, of course, God is blatantly against abortion, about this particular topic, but you can see that they really, really just want sex to be normalized with kids. And this shouldn't be so surprising, because if you do mention, like I've had conversation with parents, like, kids really shouldn't be having sex. Well, like, well, they're going to do it anyway, so you might as well make sure that they're doing it safely. And I'm like, well, you can have conversations like, if you are going to, then, maybe at least know, like, don't do something so stupid as to not wear a condom, which grown women are going raw for some reason as well. I don't get it. But you really should encourage people to have sex when they're in like meaningful, loving relationships. I don't believe you should be having sex outside of marriage. That's my hot take, but parents shouldn't be so eager to just allow their children to do it at 14, 15, 16. And and then at the same time, people are so readily making sex so normal a part of adolescence. And then they're like, well, you can't have a baby at 16 and 15. I don't think you should, but it is procreation. That is how we reproduce. It is an act of reproduction. So if you're going to do grown folks business, it's got to be either for grown folks or not. You got to draw the line somewhere. You can't have your cake and eat it too. So as we continue normalizing some more of this activity, they're gonna learn about some weirder, kinkier stuff. They are. There's one book called The Naked Communist. I was listening to a segment on Nerdrotic. They were talking about how the American Writers Guild Association is trying to add more queer characters into like comic book property. And I had posted a picture of it. The lecture is on YouTube. I do intend to watch it, unfortunately, and I will report back to you guys. But so they want to take characters in comic books that are gay, or take legacy characters and make them gay or make them queer in some kind of way, which they have been like doing for a while. So there is an agenda there, but as they were talking about that particular segment or what their agenda is. And so a conservative commentator who also comments a lot about pop culture and stuff, she brought up this book, The Naked Communist. And so she started reading different rules that they use to push communism. And she's like, one of these is going to make you guys very upset. And one of them was to push homosexuality and sexual degeneracy because they see it as a good way to destabilize the nuclear family. And I'm not saying that everybody is in on like the plot to destroy America or something like that. I'm not saying that, but there are some bad actors who do want to they talk about dismantling the system all the time. They do. So I just want to let you guys know that there is a reason for the structure of the culture to keep normalizing hypersexuality in your children. So my advice is always to homeschool your kids, but a lot of people don't see that as an option. But at the very least, you need to vet what they watch and vet who your kids are around, and don't be asleep at the wheel. A lot of these people are betting on the fact that you're too busy to catch what's going on in your kids' lives. And you have to be vigilant, especially with people who are with your kids for 6-7 hours a day, and you see them, but you go to work, you come home, you cook dinner, maybe watch a little TV, and you're off to whatever. So these people who are teaching your kids have a huge influence over their lives, and it's on you to make sure that they are a good influence and not some kind of weird deviant. So that's a shame. That's a shame what the school's doing. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoy the show. I know some of it got kind of dark, but I'll never forget this comment someone left on one of my posts. They said it was under a review. Someone had given me a bad review or something on Facebook to troll me. And someone said, I wish the stuff she was saying wasn't true. I'm like, I wish it wasn't true either. Because there's some dark things in our day, but we can endure, we can keep fighting back, but you have to be aware of what's going on. So one of the reasons why I do what I do. So if you like what I do, please consider going to blacktnews.com and leaving a donation at blacktnews.com/donate. Cost to stream, cost to run my website, cost to when I make fancy videos, have like the cool graphics. It costs, I have, high-tech sort of programs and stuff as well. All that stuff costs. So if you would like to help with that overhead, I thank you guys tremendously. Make sure that you're liking, subscribing, tagging different people, recommending Black Teen News to the people who are watching it on. I don't know how you on Facebook you make it so you do notifications, but I don't know, try and figure that out. But on YouTube, someone in the comments complained because they're not getting notifications when they're going live. There is a notification bell. Make sure that you're hitting it. But I go live at 4 p.m. Eastern time, Monday through Friday. In the new year, I will begin doing the TikTok shows on Saturday as well. And also, I'm on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch. I'm streaming. Once I get enough subscribers on Rumble, I'll stream live on Rumble. I will start posting more on Rumble. I do have a Rumble account, so just look for Black Tea News. All those handles are at Black Tea News. I will also have podcasts starting like on Spotify and iTunes, etc., Google, whatever, starting next year. So please look out for that. And make sure that you guys also check out different merchandise at the store. I did reference this book while I was talking. So make sure you're on the lookout for God is Blatantly Against Abortion. That is coming soon. It's not available for pre-order yet, but I will let you guys know. God bless you guys, and I will see you tomorrow.